On the east bank of the Mississippi River, at the place where New Orleans ends and Jefferson Parish begins, there is a unique community of settlers who have erected homes raised high upon pilings to protect them from the river that periodically floods its banks. These structures stand precariously between the toe of the broad levee that protects the population behind it and the shore of the river in front of it. This tract of land is called the Batture. The people who have settled here have never owned the land they occupy, and they've been locked in battle for years with the family that actually holds legal title to the land, the O'Dwyer family of Orleans and Jefferson parishes. As far as the Batture dwellers are concerned, their occupation of the land over time has become a way of life that includes a sense of entitlement as well as a belief in its legitimacy.
Nobody really worries, even thinks about that, It's a dead issue as far as everybody up here. Nobody up here feels like they're squatters. We're owners of our own property.
Their homes, or camps as they call them, are built on 12 consecutive plots and are numbered accordingly. The camps, which are situated along the river between Dakin Street and Monticello Avenue, have U.S. Postal Service to mailboxes located on the extension of Monticello Avenue that leads to the Mississippi River Trail roadway and the camps.
When I was a boy, I used to ride horses at my grandfather's stable every Sunday morning. And his stable was on land that he, my maternal grandfather, had acquired from my paternal grandfather's family, my dad's family. It was just downriver of the Batture property at issue. The stable's still there, the Batture property is still there. So after my rides on Sunday morning, this was like Huckleberry Finn, Tom Sawyer stuff. And there were these shacks that were just upriver from my grandfather's stable. And I used to try to make contact with the people who lived there, but they were very, very belligerent. Well, it became known to me that we own that land. But my father told me in no uncertain terms, Ashton, leave those people alone. They're not hurting anyone. Anyway, as I grew older, and as my dad grew older, he changed from his beneficent ways and allowing these squatters and trespassers to inhabit our property, and persuaded me, after I graduated from law school, to file a lawsuit. We did.
In 1981, O'Dwyer filed a petitory action in state court, reasserting his family's ownership of the Batture land. The case remains open.
My name is Ashton O'Dwyer, and I'm here to be sure that the entire council is aware and that the light gets shined on a very serious injustice that has been perpetrated upon my family, the O'Dwyer family, and our property on the Mississippi River Batture. It's located on the east bank of the parish at the convergence of River Road, Oak Street, Monticello Avenue, and Leak Avenue. If you look at the handout that I've handed to Ms. Lopez, and which you all should have now, you will see that there are 12 numbered structures on the property, and opposite each numbered structure I've got several names. Those are the squatters and trespassers who are currently occupying my family's land. illegally, I might add, but I hate to say, aided and abetted by current and past members of this council. There's also on the property, at the very top, a huge Louisiana Power and Light power stanchion. It's incredible. But you all facilitated the sale of a portion of our property by one of the squatters and trespassers to LP&L, who then erected this tower which encroaches on our property. This is crazy. I have here some documents which I'm not going to burden you with, but which I will give to Ms. Fauché and to Ms. Lopez so that they're part of the record. Those documents are the documents of title of the O'Dwyer family in an unbroken chain dating back to our acquisition of the property in July 1945 from the Texas Company, which was a precursor to Texaco Inc. I might add that every one of these documents is recorded in the conveyance office of this parish, and if anybody had bothered to check the conveyance office records before authorizing the issuance of building permits to people who intended to build on land they did not own, my family's land, then our ownership would have been plain as day for all to see.
I can also state unequivocally that title to this property rests in my family in an unbroken chain of title since the acquisition of the property by my great-uncle George L. O'Dwyer Sr. in July 1945, carried forward to this day, from Uncle George to my grandmother, to my uncle, and to my dad, and then down to all of their offspring. I can also state unequivocally that since 1945, every time we have been assessed, we have paid the property taxes on this property. I've tried to get the sheriff of Jefferson Parish, who actually collects the property taxes, Newell Norman, to do something about it. And I brought to his attention Sheriff Norman at the last council meeting just last month on the East Bank in the Yenny building that there are criminal statutes being violated on a continuing basis by the squatters and trespassers, and he will not do a thing about it. The criminal code of the state of Louisiana is embodied in Title 14 of the Louisiana Revised Statutes. The following criminal statutes are implicated by the activities of the squatters and trespassers who illegally occupy my family's land. Title 14 Louisiana Revised Statutes, Section 63, which prohibits the crime of criminal trespass. Title 14 Louisiana Revised Statutes, Section 63.3, which prohibits the crime of entry on land where forbidden. Title 14 Louisiana Revised Statutes, Section 123, which prohibits the crime of perjury. The squatters and trespassers have committed perjury in numerous federal, state, and parish documents where they claim they own the land, which is a lie, or they claim they made all reasonable efforts to locate the owners of the land. All they had to do was look at the conveyance office records, and they would have identified our family's ownership lickety-split. They're liars. And they violated Title 14, Section 123, which prohibits perjury. Title 14, Section 125, false swearing. Same as the perjury allegations. False swearing is a crime. Where are you, Sheriff Norman? In Title 14, Louisiana Revised Statutes, Section 26, which prohibits criminal conspiracy. These people didn't do this on their own. They had a lot of help. But where are you, Sheriff Norman?
And there is also Title 14, Louisiana Revised Statutes, Section 133, which prohibits fraud and misrepresentation in the filing of public records.
Finally, and perhaps most seriously, there is a federal statute, criminal statute, that is impacted. It happens to be the same criminal statute pursuant to which Martha Stewart was prosecuted. It's Title 18, United States Code, Section 1001, and it prohibits making false statements to a federal official in connection with a federal investigation. How is this implicated? None of the structures which the squatters and trespassers illegally erected on our land could have gotten there without permits, letters of no objection, authorizations to proceed from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. They were lied to by the squatters and trespassers. And when the squatters and trespassers did that, they violated this federal statute. You all know that Mississippi River Batture property is governed by a little something called the Rivers and Harbors Act, federal statute. You can't just go build willy-nilly on the Mississippi River Batture. You've got to get a permit from the United States Army Corps of Engineers. When my grandmother died back in the early 90s, my family were in negotiations with LP&L to buy big chunks of property between my grandmother's home at 314 Monticello Avenue and where what is now known as Southport Hall is. We owned all that land, and they were going to put a power line on our property and connect it to the Batture. Well, guess what? The power line's there now, but they didn't use the land that they were negotiating with us to buy. They didn't buy it. But they bought a part of the Batture property from a family called Anderson. So they knew who owned the Batture property. They didn't just go buy from the Andersons. They had to do some kind of title examination or investigation of the conveyance office records.
On June 1st, 1988, the New Orleans District of the Army Corps of Engineers gave public notice that, pursuant to Section 10 of the River and Harbor Act, the Louisiana Power and Light Company, or LP&L, in Jefferson, Louisiana, was applying for an aerial crossing over the Mississippi River. Inasmuch as the tower was to be erected in part on the Batture property owned by the O'Dwyer family, Ashton R. O'Dwyer Sr. on June 16, 1988, sent a letter of protest objecting to the use of the property until satisfactory consideration can be arrived at between LP&L, the Corps of Engineers, and him. This was the first in a series of letters to the New Orleans district of the Corps of Engineers. On August 9, 1988, the chief of the local Corps of Engineers Operations and Readiness Division, Henry R. Shore, issued a revised public notice. And on August 11th, Mr. O'Dwyer, having heard only from LP&L asking what objections he had, again requested information from the Corps regarding restrictions to the use of his property. On October 7, 1988, without the knowledge or approval of the O'Dwyer family, the acting assistant chief of the Operations and Readiness Division of the local Corps of Engineers, Albert J. Gio, issued a statement of findings on behalf of his commanding colonel, Lloyd K. Brown, stating that there were no objections by federal agencies, state and local agencies, or individuals other than Ashton R. O'Dwyer Sr., and therefore the permit would be granted. That same day, a Department of Army permit was issued to LP&L to install and maintain a high-tension aerial crossing for its electric power lines across the Mississippi River at a point about 104.1 miles above the mouth of the waterway at Jefferson, Louisiana. Mr. O'Dwyer also had no idea that on October 27, 1988, LP&L would purchase a right-of-way access to his property from the occupants of camp numbers 10, 11, and 12, who had no legal claim whatsoever to the land. A total of $19,540 was paid to Robert and Catherine Mitchell of camp number 10, Paul Brown of camp number 11, and Marcel and Svetka Anderson of camp number 12. With the new tower in place, Mr. O'Dwyer on August 23, 1989, again asked the local Corps of Engineers to inform him about how his land would be affected, since he had not yet been contacted by the Army Corps of Engineers regarding the erection of the tower. Instead, he heard only from LP&L's representative, Patty Hebert. Then, on August 29, 1989, the chief of the Regulatory Functions Branch of the Corps, Operations and Readiness Division, Ronald J. Ventola, simply informed O'Dwyer that, quote, a Department of the Army permit does not grant any property rights or exclusive privileges, nor does it authorize any injury to the property or rights of others, unquote. That failure by the Corps of Engineers to exercise any regulatory authority over the permit it issued illustrates how a governmental entity can facilitate the interests of a powerful corporation such as Louisiana Power and Light to the detriment of the legitimate property rights of a landowner, in this case, the O'Dwyer family, who observed every legal requirement when it first acquired, and to this day still holds legal title to the Batture property that was illegally appropriated by LP&L.
Like a storm growing across the horizon, there's a reckoning coming.